Thanks for joining us for our Chamber Connection podcast. Thanks to our friends at Speakeasy, we are here for the next 52 weeks, bringing you guests from around our community, elected officials, business owners, folks doing great work here in Macomb County. So sit back, take a listen, and we hope you'll join us every week for our Chamber Connection. Hi, I'm Stacy Ziarko, President and CEO of the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us for this edition of our Chamber Connection podcast. We are here at our podcast studios at Speakeasy in Sterling Heights, and we're here for another edition of focusing on our members and learning more about those that can help benefit you and your business. So my guest today is Brian Eisbrenner from the Eisbrenner Group. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. Thank you for having me here, and a great facility to do a podcast at.
Absolutely. They kind of have all the stops in here. So I am looking forward to this. I am looking forward to learning more. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So what I like to call myself is a business magnet. You know, I help business owners attract the resources they need to get to the next level in their business. And my background is I've been a small business entrepreneur for the last 20 some years. So I took over a small family business who was a member of the Sterling Chamber years ago, Shelby Paint and Decorating. And I took over that business at a time when I didn't know what I wanted to do, but my father came down with Parkinson's, and you step into the business and do what any good family member would do is, create an income so that he's able to continue to live the lifestyle that he was used to. And then eventually he was able to collect on a disability policy.
Great.
But I bought that business off of him, grew it, sold it, went from, I was at the pinnacle of success, earned tons of awards for what I did. And there were times where I put the business on the rocks and had to make some tough decisions.
And not with bourbon, right?
And not with bourbon, yeah. It would have been much nicer with bourbon at that time. But yeah, so through those experiences, and then I went on to, after selling the business, I went on to running other companies. So companies as large as 250 employees, inside the organization as the CEO and decision maker inside those companies. And then I took that experience that I've had in owning my own business, buying and selling a business, and then working for other people in succession and leadership transitions, and apply that to helping small business owners. Because in my time, one of the biggest helps to me was CEO peer group that I belonged to. When I took over for my dad, I didn't know what I didn't know. And that was a huge struggle. I went to him, and he was dealing with his disease and was, rightfully more worried about his disease and the next steps of his life than what was going on in the business. And that was the housing crisis. I was selling paint in the housing crisis. It doesn't get any better than that, right?
And I think you made a comment like, you didn't know what you didn't know. How many of us end up in positions, and I'll say, like, I fell into mine too, where it's like, we don't know what we don't know. And you might know what's in this little box, but how many people fall into that trap?
Yeah. And I was in college, finance marketing degree, and nothing taught me for what happens when a 30% drop in sales happens in the first 12 months of taking over. So I sought out some CEO peers and joined a group called Tech Detroit at that time. And I got into a group with some great CEOs locally here in the area. And we were all going through the same thing. We were seeing major drops in business. We were seeing, you couldn't cut deep enough in expenses, and unemployment was high, and it just looked like there was no bottom, right? It was just going to fall out, or, everything was just going to keep dropping. So working together with those peers, helped me grow my business, get out of it, make major steps and investments when we needed to. And in my time with that group, one of the things that really struck me is we had about 14 members in that group. And in my 10 years with them, we had 3 CEOs pass away well before the age of 60.
Oh.
And, so we're all hardworking. We're all putting everything we have into our businesses. And these guys were guys I looked up to. They had the car, the house, the business that I idolized. And I wanted to become that. And then I attended those funerals, and I seen the children left behind, the wife left behind. And, one of my commitments was that, I want to help CEOs and business owners put together the plans, build a business, not just owning a job, but own a business so that in the event that something happens, they're typically the primary income holder for their family, and that they can, the wife or the survivors are able to hire somebody to either run the business or buy enough time that they can get the education they need to step into that business. Because it's a big piece, for me, is that continuity of business. You didn't take all the risks and spend all the money and invest time, energy, and effort into just having a job. You could go work for Ford or GM and have the healthcare, have all those things. You invest,
and you're not the one making all the decisions.
Exactly. So you want something that produces a cash flow for you, regardless of whether you're the president of the company or not. So in the event you become disabled, you have this income producing asset, and that comes from my background in.
Well, I think, too, is people don't think that it can happen to them, right?
Yeah.
Your father probably never thought that this would be something that would take him out of running his business. And, because that's not something you plan for. You don't plan for illness or a disability or something to really consume. People don't think about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Most people, a lot of business owners, when I start talking to them, what I find out is death is their strategy, right? Well, I don't know. Somebody else will have to deal with it at the end, and that's really not the strategy you want to have. You want to be able to have things in place, have the right people, have the right team, and to me, business is the ultimate team, right? You're not playing for a championship. Right. You're not playing. It's a season that never ends.
There's no end. I was like, there's no end.
Yeah. So you want to have the right people in the right places. So in the event that you're disabled or pass away, that you have this, business that continues on regardless of whether you're at the helm of it. So.
What are some of the things that the businesses you work with, what are some things that you've been able to help them kind of sort through?
So recently, a lot of stuff is that, as you start out as an entrepreneur, you have limited capital, limited resources, and what happens is you build the systems around that, right? If small systems equal, small growth. And so a lot of it is stepping in, looking at where do they want to go, what needs to change in order for them to have the capacity to service more customers or grow the business they want. And so then it's identifying what's the next step. Is it additional equipment, resources? Is it people? And who are those people? And then helping them define what are the key characteristics those people have, the strengths that they need to have that maybe the business owner doesn't have. Because we're in business, there's a lot of ego tied up in that. Sure. And we talked about, I don't know what I don't know. So helping to go through and figure out what that is so that when we bring in somebody, it's a complement, not somebody who's just adding more of the same skills.
I always try to find people that are smarter than I am. Or the one thing I am very clear to anyone is finance is not my thing. Like, I can read a statement, I can read a profit and loss statement, but you want me to do any kind of bookkeeping or QuickBooks or financial management, it is not mine. So I find someone that's really good at that.
Yeah.
When I came into the chamber, that was an open position. And I was like, we will fill this position soon.
Yeah. Because
you don't want me screwing things up. And I think that business owners sometimes forget that they don't have to be everything to the whole business.
Correct. You don't necessarily always have to have your hands on the wheel, but you need to have your eyes on the road. Is an example I'd like to give people. Because you have to have those people in the right spots. You can't just ignore the finances and hope that somebody,
wing and a prayer, hope it's out there.
Yeah, but you need to set the direction, and then you need to be able to have the right people and have that trust. Because when you empower people, that was one of the greatest lessons I learned in business, was that I couldn't do it all myself. Mm-hmm. And I needed to find the right people. And then when you start putting the right people in the right places, and they're all on the same page and know where you want to go and they want to help you get there, there's nothing more satisfying than having somebody solve a problem for you on their own, who takes ownership of it, that they knew what the objective was, and you didn't have to get involved, that they said, hey, I did this because here's what I've seen. It's gives you a peace of mind that I can't, that is just so great in business.
So I think that this shows like maturity sometimes, is that like I'm really comfortable like empowering the people around me. I'm going on vacation in a couple of days. I'm going to be gone for 10 days. They're going to run the place. And I don't have any worries.
Yeah.
I know that everything's going to be okay. They can make decisions. Anything that I said, if the building's on fire, call me. And one of my team says, can I call the fire department first? Please do. Yeah, take that ownership of that. But I think that also is like, I used to be the person that had to do it all. Like I had to have my hands in everything. And I think as I've gotten into different positions longer, I hope I have, is that I do like trust the people around me. You empower them. I got to tell you, it is freeing to be able to do that.
It's freeing. And then one of the best things about letting go like that is you find out what isn't set up right. You find out, I didn't have this procedure in place, or we didn't have an answer for this type of customer. but you learn and you grow, and that's where the biggest growth comes in from the business, is being able to step away, let things happen, let crap hit the fan, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that you can go back with your team and say, hey, this didn't work, and this, what do we need to do next time so this doesn't happen? And that's where you have major steps and major growth.
Now, is that something that you work with businesses on? You take that overhead view as an outsider, right? Like, you can come in, because an entrepreneur, this is their baby, right? No one tells you your baby's ugly. So is that what you are able to take a overhead view of their business and find the holes that they might be missing?
Yeah, so I work with a variety of businesses. So I work with insurance companies all the way to large union contractors who do welding and things like that. So that variety gives me just a different perspective. Now, you have the same principles in business, some standard things, but then you get different ideas about things. Other people apply things. And so when you're in business and it's lonely, right?
Yeah.
You get caught up working 60, 80 hours a week. And then you try things and it doesn't work. And then you start to believe what's possible. You start to create these barriers in your own mind. So I help people break through those and look at what's truth and what's not. What was maybe not possible for you, but with the next hire, bringing in the right person, the right talent, takes you to a whole new level. So yes.
We often see, and when small businesses come to us, that one of their biggest struggle is they have a really good idea, but they can't take that idea to that next level. How do you help folks like that? That just, I have the best product out there, and everyone tells me my cakes are the best, or I'm really good at this. But like, how do we get that to like being a business?
To turn something you're good at into a business.
Yeah.
Well,
Or that you love too.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's understanding what the market is, right? Because if I ask my mom what I'm good at, she's going to tell me I'm good at everything, right?
I'll introduce her to my mom.
Yeah.
She would tell me the same thing.
But understanding what the real market is, what is the potential? How much, is it truly unique? Where's your competition? Doing your typical SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But from there, it is looking at, it's the who, not what, I guess. Who do you need to be in business with? Who are the customers? Who are the stakeholders that are going to help you grow this business? And then beginning with the end in mind, so looking at, if I'm good at making cakes, for example, where do I want that to go? How big do I want that business to be? Do I want to be the baker who every morning wakes up and goes in and cooks because that's what I enjoy? That's what I love about doing this. And if that's the case, and do I want this to one day be a business that's sold, or do I want it just to be a lifestyle business that it creates an income for me, or do I want something that a venture capitalist or PE company is going to buy, 5, 10, 20 years down the road? So really, it's establishing what you want first, and then we work backwards from there. Is figuring out where are the customers, where's the best location, who are the people. What's the pay scales? How are we going to be unique? Have that competitive advantage, that makes you different than the other person who makes cakes. And then from there, building a system around it. And there's lots of great books like the E-Myth or Traction or different things that will help, find the right system to grow there. And we just find out what fits with the right person.
So workplaces and businesses changed a lot post-pandemic.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've seen is the rise of the entrepreneur that might have worked somewhere for a long time and now decided to strike out on their own. What advice do you have for, those folks? Because you kind of did that 15 years ago almost. So what are some things that someone that said, I liked the lifestyle I had, maybe working from home, flexibility, I don't have that from my employer, and now I'm going to start my own business. Yeah. So you've highs and lows, you can tell them all.
So the opportunity has never been greater, right? You see fractional businesses of anything, fractional CEOs, fractional CFOs, bookkeepers. So the opportunity to go out and create an income with your skills that you were using at some large company has never been greater. But what I would encourage you to look at is what's the lifestyle you want to have. That's the key thing, is that, we get into it and, working from home created a certain lifestyle, and being able to want to maintain that, you need to have barriers in what you want. So in starting out as an entrepreneur, what I would say, and having the opportunity to work for Gary Keller from Keller Williams, and understanding, he told a story one time that I tell this to every entrepreneur, was, he grew this business in Austin, Texas. It was a real estate company, had a couple brokerages, was going great. He empowered the agents and made them all kind of shareholders in the business. But what ended up happening is people came to him and said, Gary, you got to franchise this and we got to take this across the country. And his thing was, well, I'm not willing to travel to Michigan or to California to get these things because I made a promise to my family that I'm going to be home at 5 o'clock for dinner every night, and I'll never be more than an hour away from Austin, Texas as I grow this business. So those barriers he put in forced his team to get creative, forced himself to get creative. So as opposed to flying all over the country and trying to sell Stacy on the next, real estate franchise, he actually flew people in. So he'd fly you in to meet with them, so they got to see the system, see the models that he had put in place, and he got to be home with his family and have dinner. And he would tell us a story too. He'd go every Tuesday to have lunch with his kid at school, and he'd even bring those entrepreneurs who wanted to buy a franchise with him to it. So it was really authentic.
It was a priority. Yeah, he put a priority in place.
Yeah, and he didn't change his values, his purpose, because the business needed more of him or more time. And by having those barriers in place and keeping them in place, you'll force the creative thinking you need to build the business, to build the lifestyle that you got into this in the first place for.
Some of the businesses you work with too, the larger businesses, have probably had to use that creativity over the last couple months too. I think as employees, people's priorities have changed. And so how have you seen some of the businesses, the larger businesses you work with, really take that into account, into whatever our next, our post-pandemic workplace and work style looks like?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. That that's the big thing is this new work from home or hybrid work or what I work with CEOs on right now with that, the cultural shift that you're seeing is is it you give people what they want or do you give them what they need? And what I find is the businesses who didn't clearly explain their purpose and how important people are and how they care about people and people achieving their own purpose or goals because the company's achieving their goals. If they weren't clear on that and you just had a management style where I'm telling you, we're measuring your objectives every day and checking the box that, okay, you made 50 phone calls a day, boom, check that. And we didn't clearly explain what we were doing or the impact that we were making in the world and the lives of all the stakeholders, the employees, the customers, the suppliers. If we didn't do that, then that's where you have the disconnect in the workforce. And why wouldn't I work from home?
Right.
I made my 50 calls. I, inputted this many, I reviewed this many applications for mortgages. And when you're treated that way, as just task oriented or as a machine, then why couldn't that be done from anywhere on the planet? So what I'm seeing people work on more is their purpose. What is the business's purpose? And more importantly, how does the business purpose support the purpose for each individual who works there? And it's different for everybody. And it takes so much effort and time from that management staff if they're going from that task-oriented management to empowering and finding out what each individual needs to achieve. I have one business who went from, they want to measure how many mortgages people are able to get or buy homes for the first time from working for them. I mean, that's a great metric versus how many phone calls did you make. If
that's taking an investment in them too, as a person, and not just as another cog in the wheel that kind of helps accomplish their business goals. But this is now taking an interest in someone's personal goal. Yeah.
So measuring it based on because ultimately that's what as a great leader, you're a servant. Right?
Yeah.
At the pinnacle of it is
you should be.
You should be, yes. And don't other leadership styles work for a short period of time, right? You can force people and use power to get people to do what you need, but on the long run, whether it's a business or a government, you see that change over time. So when you help people get what they need specifically, not always what they want, because I want to drive a Ferrari, I want to never have to work again and win the lottery.
I'm hoping maybe tonight.
Yeah. But what really it matters is what I need, and what I need, is to use my skills to continue to grow, to interact with people. And one of the biggest satisfactions I get in my life is helping people grow. I have 3 boys at home, and so working with them and the challenges that they come up with, and growing that family, but then helping business owners. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing somebody break through a glass ceiling that they have and get to the next level, or do something that they never thought was possible in their business just because you help them see it from a different angle, or you help them get the right person in the right place, and how freeing it is that now they get to make it to their kids' baseball games and things like that.
So who are the appropriate businesses that should call you?
Yeah. So for me, it's I wouldn't say it's a category of business, but I work with inspiring, hardworking people who dream big and never give up. And the biggest thing is being coachable. Somebody who's open to seeing it a different way. Who's not necessarily, are you going to take my idea or some perspective I bring, but you're open to think about it and say, yes, that's for me, or no, it's not. And this is who I am. And by
How
doing
often do you see that aha moment go off to people?
I don't normally get to see it in that meeting, because what happens is, the silence does the heavy lifting. What I find is when there's a good question or something I observe and I bring it up, and when I don't get an answer right back, and the wheels are turning inside somebody's head, but typically, it's a week, it's 2 weeks down the road where somebody says, you asked me that question and I didn't have an answer for you. But as I started to look at the business, or as I started to talk to my wife or my family about this is what we really want, it completely, I started to see what I needed to do next to get there. So that's when the ahas come in, is usually down the road. So.
And are those, you talk about people being coachable.
Yeah.
We're not talking like sports team coachable, right? We're talking that you have that willingness to kind of, open your eyes to something that might be different.
Yeah, open, trying different things. And I mean, I'm sure sports teams, those coaches want people to be coachable too, as far as it's just being open-minded and willing to try different things and see things from a different angle, and be reflective in your thought. Think about, why have I always done things the same way? One of the things I hated when I took over for my father was, I was young, number one, and everyone there had been there for years. And when I would look at something, and this is, sales have dropped 33%. So you're looking at everything. Why do we do this? What does this make sense? And people would come in, or I'd go to people and say, well, why do we do this? And they say, well, that's how we've always done it.
It's my least favorite phrase.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can't justify why you're doing something, then there's probably something you have to change, or an opportunity that's there in your business. And I discovered that very early on in what I was doing.
And it's interesting, and it's not a bad thing, but so many businesses fall into that trap. And I will say the pandemic even made, the chamber look at what we did, because we had done so many things because we'd always done them before. And so I hope that businesses took that opportunity. At the start of the pandemic, someone said to me, never waste a good crisis. And I was like, okay. And it gave you that opportunity. I hope other businesses took that. Now that we're kind of on that other side, now it's time to figure out what that, I hate the expression, but the new normal looks like, your new workplace looks like. Is that what you're seeing too?
Yeah, totally. It's an exciting time, to see the differences. And you talked about, maybe employees feel more empowered than ever with working from home, and they, got to manage their own time, put it that way. And they got to pick when they wanted to take their dry cleaning in or take their dog in. And that's all great things. And they got a taste of entrepreneurship and being that owner. But one of the scary things we talked about earlier is you got the taste of ownership, but you didn't always take the risk with it too. So those entrepreneurs now have to take that risk, or to go out on your own.
Right.
You're taking more risk. You don't have the health insurance paid for. You don't have the retirement plan. So when you, so what we're seeing is that shift of people going from, do I want to go out on my own, to being, the employer and having that security.
So how can people find you? They've listened to this, they're interested, they're invested, they know they need to make a change. How do people find you?
So the easiest way to find me is just go to theceobusinesscoach.com. That's an easier email address or website than spelling out my last name. So I created that one. So if you go to theceobusinesscoach.com, just click on the contact form, and I'm happy to do a discovery call with anybody. So I typically take 90 minutes, and I tell people that we're going to have a powerful conversation about your business. And at the end of it, there's, you might decide that, we had a great conversation, you got more clarity around what you want to do, and you might decide that you're going to go implement it all on yourself. And then the other choice you have is, that you enjoyed talking with me, you see where you want to go, but you want to get there faster and do it with a little bit less lumps on your head, from doing it. So
I love it. Brian, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you work with our other chamber members
thank you so much.
Throughout the next couple of months. So join us next time on our next edition of The Chamber Connection. Thanks for tuning in to The Chamber Connection. Be sure to check out information on the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce website, our Facebook page, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We look forward to you connecting with us and tuning in next week.